Welcome, NASCAR fans, to Mystery Caution YouTube channel. I'm Greg DePalma, and thanks for joining us once again. Yeah, like we've been doing this for years. For the second straight week as we take a look at qualifying at the racetrack here, Talladega Super Speedway for the GEICO 500. We're already into race number 10 for the NASCAR. Yes, you see it right up there, top left corner, Cup Series. So race number 10. And the second super speedway, we had Daytona to start with. So obviously you want to take a Daytona as a trend. William Byron, the winner of that race, see how the drivers did at Daytona. But more importantly, to see how they do overall, Daytona and Talladega. Those are the two most similar, just as we will pop up right here. There's only two of them. Now you can add Atlanta because of the drafting now that is done in Atlanta. I would definitely do that. I don't look at it as closely related to Daytona as Talladega, but you definitely throw in Atlanta when you're taking a look at your trends for 2024. And Atlanta, we did have Daniel Suarez getting the win. And just taking a look, Ryan Blaney, we know he's going to be a favorite. He was second. Bubba Wallace, who was actually fifth at Daytona and at Atlanta, is somebody that CJ and I both looked at on Tuesday as not one of our top. Actually, I don't think he was. Actually, he was. He was really for CJ and I. He was like our fourth. If we had a top four, we both have a top three. But if we had a top four, we were both putting in Bubba Wallace. And why not again? Fifth at both Atlanta and Atlanta and Daytona. And so anyway, just check those two out, Atlanta and Daytona. Of course, you know how to do that with Atlanta. All right, now let's talk about some other key trends that are going to be important for this race. Keeping in mind, the latest weather forecast says they are going to race on time. It looks like the rain is going to stop around 11 o'clock tomorrow on Sunday, and that's great news. There shouldn't be any delays. There's not going to be any rain after that. So once it stops, it's over with. They're going to have more than enough time to start this race at whatever. As long as it ends around 11, 12 o'clock, you would think that they should be no problem getting underway between 2 and 3 o'clock on Sunday. Okay, so let's take a look at some other trends before we get into the qualifying speeds and what everybody's going to look like to start the race tomorrow. We have, and don't forget, we talk about this every Tuesday. You can check out Prime Sports Network. That's where we record and post our early week show. It's every Tuesday. Me and CJ were doing a RotoWire. I'm going to include a link in this video where you're going to check out CJ's latest report for, I think he probably has the latest report for both the NASCAR Cup Series race and also for the F1 race. We're also going to post a segment of the show we did on Tuesday for F1 only. So we're going to post that. So it'll be two separate videos on Mystery Caution, one for F1, one for NASCAR, that both CJ and I did on Tuesday. It's not going to be the complete video. It's going to be the condensed video. So if you want to see the complete video, check that out at Prime Sports Network. Okay. Either way, we want you to subscribe to both networks. All right, here we go. 9 of the last 10 winners started outside the top 4 rows. Now, this is important, right? Because we're going to go into qualifying and you're going to see drivers in the top 9, 10. You're going to go, well, I thought that was going to be important, but maybe not. And that's the case. It's really not. What I think is important, though, and we're going to get into it, is generally how does a manufacturer do at the track? Well, do we see any giveaways based on qualifying? We have. Okay, so we're going to get into that in just a little bit. Since 2022. Now, this is with the new car, of course. Winners have started outside. Well, I should say none of them have started inside the top 10. How about that? So Blaney was the closest, the 10th. Then you have 17th, 16th, and 19th. So how about that's interesting. And I think that just there proves once again that starting position at Talladega is not very important. The farthest back a winner started was 36th, and also interesting to note that 34th position has been victorious 3 separate times. So I guess we'll find out who's starting 34th in just a little bit. And then finally, we go over the fact that, and this is actually becoming a little bit of a theme, because we talked, the same thing happened last week, but the last 7 winners at Talladega in the spring race, okay, not all told at Talladega, because there's twice a year, but the last 7 winners in the spring race have all been different. Okay, if you want to check that out, if you want to go with that trend and make sure you don't pick any of those 7 drivers, go with it. Chevy drivers, meanwhile, since the new car, it was first Chevy until Ryan Blaney won last, I believe it was October. Now, Ford drivers, of course, Ryan was on driving that Ford. They've won 11 of the last 17. Toyota drivers, meanwhile, have just won twice since 2014. Now, the good thing for Toyota, though, is that they have won 2 of the last 7. So even though they've only won 2 of whatever, I just didn't add that up. The fact is that they have won 2 of the last 7. Unfortunately, as we'll get into qualifying, they're not off to a good start this year, or of course this weekend. Okay, so let's go ahead now and check it out. Let's talk about qualifying. And matter of fact, I could post up the qualifying chart here from J-Ski. All right, so there you go. Michael McDowell, Austin Cindric, they were real close. McDowell just got him late. He's got the pole. And look at the top 3. Actually, look at the top 5, because Kyle Busch and Austin Dillon have had awful starts to the season. So you have basically 5 long shots. Maybe this, once again, is that the trend is going to hit once again. That it just doesn't matter where you start. If you start in the top 4 rows at Talladega, it may be a bad thing. And based on so far the drivers we see there, because Truex does not win. Matter of fact, he's never won at Talladega. I'm pretty sure he's never won. Yeah. What was it? 38 races. He's never won at Talladega. Buescher's horrible at Talladega. And the only one in that top 8, in the top 4 rows, the only driver that has a good history at this track and is driving a Ford is Joey Logano. So that's it. Okay. Now, and if we just quickly run down the rest here, look who's on the bottom, Kyle Larson. Not because of speed, and you know what? We couldn't care less if Kyle Larson was on the pole. He was on the pole, I believe, in the 500, right? And what did we say back then? Didn't matter, and it doesn't, because Kyle Larson's terrible on these super speedways. But I guess they were trying to get the whole you ain't cheating if you're not getting caught and all that stuff, or it isn't cheating really if you think about it. Fact is though, they were caught for a part violation, so they couldn't even qualify, and maybe good for them. They got 1 top 5 out of 18 races at Talladega. I guess try anything. And here's the reason why it's probably not that a big deal, is because it's a super speedway. So hey, if we get caught, we're trying to figure out the best way of getting more speed out of Kyle Larson in these types of races, which just doesn't work out for us anyway. Let's see what we can do. We got caught. Okay, we're gonna start at 38th, whatever. But look, it's a super speedway. If we're that good, then we'll be fine. So yeah, I don't think it's going to matter. And if anybody is going to go for it, it might as well be Kyle Larson. Okay, so let's now talk about how the qualifying is important here before we segue to the edited version of our show on Tuesday. Matter of fact, I'm going to quickly see if I notice. Let me see. I want to check out and see if I notice, because the odds usually are not available for everybody at this time, because they always wait until after the Xfinity race. I'm guessing they're going to do the same thing, but sometimes they don't care because of the fact that it's a super speedway and the odds are not going to change all that much. So let me see if they've got anything out there. They don't. Right now, just taking a look, they've got the Xfinity race odds. It looks like they got to start racing at 4:20. It rains. It's supposed to start about 7 or 8. So they probably did a good job to get that race started a little earlier if they can. Austin Hill is the heavy favorite in that one, but no, they don't have any odds right now for the NASCAR race. So even for the Super Speedway race, they've taken that off the board. Okay, so let's go ahead and see about whether or not these speeds and how they match up trend-wise with the race tomorrow. Ryan Blaney, Byron, and Keselowski, the 3 favorites in the race. Byron starting 13th, Blaney 21st, Keselowski 22nd. So normally that would be like crazy, right? The 3 favorites of the race, 2 of them are starting outside the top 20. Nobody's inside the top 10, but it really doesn't matter. Keeping in mind, Ryan Blaney is driving a Ford, and Byron is driving a Chevy, and that isn't good. Keselowski's got a Ford as well, so it just doesn't matter. It really doesn't. We talked about Keselowski. We know how good he can be at this track with the 6 wins and all that. But let's just keep in mind that with the new car, and this is important, he's not driving Penske with the new car. He's not with the big Penske team. He's had 1 top 20, leading just 7 laps in 4 races. He's had finishes of 23rd, 24th, and 32nd. So I'm not really, obviously I'm not changing my mind after seeing a qualifying effort of 22nd. That's just my point there. Blaney, I really don't care too much that he's starting 21st. I would have liked to have seen a little bit of a faster speed there for Ryan. He did start 10th when he won the race in October, but Ryan is the best right now. Nobody's better, let's just put it that way, on the super speedways. And this should benefit you, though, as we said, and we always say, this should benefit you. If you want to take Ryan Blaney, this is why you wait until qualifying, and you hope that he gets a 20th first position, because then the odds are not going to get any worse for you. Byron, I can't imagine the odds are going to change much with his 13th place starting position. Then you have Logano. Now Logano is one of the almost, you could call him like a co-favorite out of the 6. He was 11-1. But again, like Keselowski, if you look at it with the new car, it's all been bad. He hasn't had a top 20 since the new car, and he's had a string of bad luck. And he's also had a string of bad luck this year. We talked about that. But I will say this, no question, to me, any of the drivers in the top 8, Logano's the one that I would be pointing to. Okay. Now, Denny Hamlin, he starts 23rd, but you know what? He's in a Toyota. Now, this is important. That Ford, who we kind of thought would be, you got to give Ford the edge going into this race, and sure enough, qualifying, they're the top 3. McDowell, Cindric, Gilliland. Toyota has 1 driver in the top 9, and that is Martin Truex Jr., who's never won a race here. So that's bad news for Toyota. Throw in the fact that Denny Hamlin doesn't look all that particularly fast, and also, as we noted the other day, he's much better in the fall at Talladega than the spring. His last 3 spring finishes, 17th, 18th, and 32nd. Now, Chase Elliott's the one that I think you're going to get kind of screwed by the odds. I was looking at the odds late last night, and he was a co-favorite. And he was kind of that on Tuesday. He was only 11-1, not 10-1. But now that he's got a win, you know how popular he is. He has a win here at the track with the new car. He has 2 wins in all. I think you're going to start piling back on Chase Elliott again as far as the odds are concerned, which is going to work against you. And we also talked about, as always, it's kind of hard to win back-to-back races in the series. That's just a given, and we'll see. It's bottom line is you just, especially with the 9th place finish, 9th place starting position for Elliott, you're not going to get a break there. Then you have Kyle Busch and Dillon. Now look, Kyle Busch started at 15-1. He was my 3rd choice on Tuesday, so obviously I'm not changing there. He's another driver, though, that has actually, if you look at it, in the new car, he has 2 top 5s. Okay, he's got a win, even though he only led 3 laps. And he also has a 3rd place finish. He has 2 outside the top 20. So he's had some good and he's had some not so good. Before the new car, he had 9 straight races at Talladega outside the top 5. Okay? So that's what I was looking at. I was looking at Kyle Busch actually doing better lately at Talladega with the new car. And I was getting 15-1. So that's why I liked him. And I still like him. To tell you the truth, I'm not even sure the odds will drop down that much. Maybe they will. Maybe you'll lose 15-1. Because I actually saw the odds go up to 18-1 a couple days ago. Okay. And then Dillon. Now, Dillon, I think, is the interesting one. Because CJ has Dillon as one of his top long shots. And he had that on Tuesday. So now that Austin Dillon puts in a nice top 5 starting position run, keeping in mind that when he raced here in 2022 in the new car, the first race with the new car, he finished 2nd. Now he's only led, though, 3 laps in his entire career at Talladega in 21 races. He was 30-1 the other day. If he doesn't drop down much more than that, like let's say it's still 25-1, then I'm okay with that. I think, you know what? All right, I'll throw for the long shot money on Austin Dillon. But if you lose like significant money on Austin Dillon because of that, he's down to 15 or he's in the teens, I personally would avoid it. But CJ does like Dillon this week as a long shot. Let's see, others to keep an eye on. Wallace driving a Toyota. I think we agreed that he was the one Toyota driver that we would back in this race. He's starting 14th, so nothing special. He's got the win in 21. It was also the last race at Talladega with the old car, and he does not have a top 15 with the new car, but he has led laps with the new car. And again, we just talked about it. His finishes at Daytona and Atlanta this year. So still, I think Wallace, I think the odds should remain pretty good, 14-1-ish, that kind of deal. And I still think he's not a bad kind of mini long shot, if you want to call him that. Let's take a look then at, I'll tell you what, let's talk about some of those really good long shots. McDowell, Cindric, Gilliland at the top. Now, McDowell, we did reference the fact that with the new car, he had 2 top 10s and 1 top 5 in 4 races. And he actually has 4 top 10s in his last 9 at Talladega. So we thought that was pretty good for a 40-1. And so Michael McDowell is someone that I liked at 40-1. I don't know now what's going to happen. If he's down, if that gets cut in half, I'll probably walk away if I haven't already wagered on him. But since I already did wager on him, I'm okay. I'm in a good spot, but just that would be my opinion. Now, Cindric, he was 30-1. I can't imagine the odds will drop that much. Maybe it gets down to 20-1 if it's any worse. If it's any lower than that, that's up to you. But the good thing, of course, is that he's going to be with Logano and Blaney as best as he can. That is a major advantage, especially if Blaney and Logano are in situation to push him to victory or vice versa. You know they're going to want to push him to victory because it's going to be much easier for Blaney and Logano to get in to the playoffs than it will be for Cindric. So that will be to advantage for Austin Cindric. Keep this in mind, though. 4 races with the new car. 2 in the fall have been in the top 10, including a 5th. 2 in the spring, outside the top 20. But he's starting 2nd. So that's a good sign, at least for now. Todd Gilliland. We mentioned Todd Gilliland as a very interesting long shot the other day, and now he's looking even better, starting 3rd. He was 50-1 the other day. Now, will he drop here? I could see him dropping. You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if he gets dropped in half. I really wouldn't. If that happens, I'd probably step away. But if you could still get him over 30-1, you might want to take a look at it. Because here's the interesting thing. He's in 4 races in the new car, he has an average of 14th. Okay, 14th. Now, why is that interesting? Because one of his finishes were 27th place. Okay, so if you take a look at just the last 3 or 3 other 3, 12th, 10th, and 7th, now you're looking at, like I just add that up right now, that's what, 29, divided by 3. It's basically 9 point something. That's his average finish in 3 of the 4 races here at Talladega. That's as good as it gets for Todd Gilliland anywhere. And after a really solid start and driving a Ford, he definitely has to be a driver to keep an eye on now as far as long shots. Okay, now I'm just going to run through the rest to see if I notice any other drivers worth mentioning based on qualifying and the rest. I mean, Bowman will start 12th. His average finish is almost 24th here. That's not good. 1 top 5 overall, but he's driving a Chevy. He's stolen races before. We mentioned that. Again, Truex just has 3 top 5s in his career at Talladega. He has been doing better with the new car on the super speedways. They're not really, we're not seeing a whole bunch of top 5s or anything like that, but he's been more at the top of the, in these races for a while, a lot better than he has been before. So, and I think this is proof, the 6th place starting position. But I don't think you're going to get the type of odds you want out of Truex. Let's see, what else? Christopher Bell, he starts 10th, but he's driving a Toyota, and he only has 1 top 5 out of 8 races, and only 1 top 10 in the new car. Chastain will start a very disappointing 32nd. He does have a win, but keep in mind, that win, he led 1 lap, all right? And he's starting 32nd now. I guess the only good thing is that you should probably get good odds on him. I just not the kind of deal though that I think is worth it this week. Let's see. Buescher, as I mentioned, starts 8th. He only has 1 top 5 out of 17, so I'm not really that all impressed with the 8th starting position. It's not going to make me change my mind in any way. Eric Jones, a disappointing 28th, also driving a Toyota. But as we talked about, Jones has an incredibly good record here in both the Xfinity Series and the Cup Series. So I think the only good thing is the fact that he is starting 28th in a way, because you're going to get good odds. So I wouldn't worry about the odds. I wouldn't worry about the Toyota. It's the driver and in a new car. In 3 of the 4 races, he has finished 6th. That's right, it's a 6th. He's finished 6th, 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 and 26th. So, and he's led 55 laps with the new car. So, yeah, I'd still go all in on a long shot only on Eric Jones. Suarez could be interesting because you're going to get good odds after starting 25th because he has 3 top 10s out of 4 at Talladega. And he's got 4 top 10s out of 14, including 3 straight top 10s. Those are the ones I just mentioned, 8th, 9th, and 10th. Plus, he's led laps here, and you should still be getting somewhere around the 35-1 number that you were getting earlier this week. Let's see. Ryan Preece starts 11th. He was 55-1. He was 8th in October. That was about the best finish he's almost ever had. He does have a top 5 here, but I just don't see anything in Ryan Preece, to tell you the truth. Harrison Burton's driving a Ford. He's starting 16th, but he has never really performed well here. Average finish of 31.4 in 5 races, so a hard pass there. Okay, you're now going to find out what CJ and I talked about in length, or as long as we can, splice it here with this little update for qualifying here today at Talladega. So check that out as we splice that in here to this video, and then check back on Tuesday. We have Dover to preview. No F1 race to preview this week, so we're going to be previewing Dover. That's it on Tuesday's show. And if you want to check it out on Tuesday, you go over to Prime Sports Network, and of course you can check out the link in the description of this video as well. And if you're an F1 fan, then you don't want to check out Prime Sports Network for whatever reason, check it out here on Mystery Caution. We will provide an F1 video from the conversation we had on Tuesday. And also, again, we'll have a link in the description if you could check out the F1 report CJ did over at RotoWire, as well as the NASCAR report at RotoWire as well. So that'll wrap it up here for our qualifying segment of the week. Now we're going to edit in what we talked about on Tuesday on our coverage on Prime Sports Network. All right, let's get going. GEICO 500, Talladega Super Speedway. We've had a lot of races there, 109. I looked at the recent trends. Not a whole lot to go on, so I try to, like a lot of these races, we're trying to zero in on the last couple of years since the new car. So that's going to come into play a lot. By the way, since the new car, you had Chevy win, and then Blaney won last October to kind of end that streak. So if anybody was going to end the Chevy streak, it probably was going to be Ryan Blaney. Not only the way that he ended the season last season, but of course how good he is at Talladega. Ford has won 11 of 17, but Blaney's win was the first in the last 5 because of the Chevy dominance. Little run there. Toyota has only had 2 wins since 2014, but they have had 2 in the last 7. And then this is the other thing that we always need to talk about, including, I'll update it on Saturday, and that is pole position. 9 of the last 10 winners started outside the top 4 rows. The only one that was different was Denny Hamlin when he won from the pole during that stretch. So if you do not qualify in the top 4 rows, do not worry. Matter of fact, that's probably a good thing if you are looking for a good driver and you want your odds to be in your favor after qualifying and practice. Since the new car came around, the winners have started 19th, 16th, 17th, and 10th. 10th was Blaney. And there's been 7 different race winners in the spring race. That's another thing that I want to talk about on some of these drivers. Very interesting, CJ, that some drivers have just done much better or much worse depending on the season, which race it was. And I can't think that's just a coincidence.
No, it is interesting. And the same thing happens at Daytona, too. You've seen a lot of guys that have been able to come out and win races in the fall race or the summer race. So it used to be in July. But they have very little success of being able to find their way to the finish, let alone win in the February race in the Daytona 500. So I think a lot of it has to do with the weather. Certainly from different times of year, you're going to have a hotter track the later you get the race in the season. Certainly in July in Florida, it becomes very hot and slippery. Some people are better at that versus when it's a little bit cooler. In February, I think Talladega is largely the same thing. It's also interesting, probably more interesting to me of spring versus fall is Talladega versus Daytona. I know they're different tracks, but effectively they're the same kind of racing. And, you tend to see guys that are more successful at Talladega than those who are successful at Daytona. Like take a Brad Keselowski, for example, wins all the time at Talladega, but it isn't exactly high on the leaderboard in terms of wins at Daytona. That, to me, is a little bit more interesting than just the spring versus the fall race.
All right, let's go ahead and take a look now at, you got the favorites. Matter of fact, I'll just pop that up there so you could just see. But before we get into it, let me just quickly pop up the futures too this week. Denny and Byron and Larson, they're still the favorites. Bell is still in, it's okay, position. Elliott now has moved into the top 10 there, or actually into the top 6 overall, top 5 overall at 9-1. It's still a pretty decent number for Elliott now that he's got the bugaboo out of the way. So I would think, look, we advised to take Elliott already because of the generous odds that you were getting. I still think you can get him now at a decent price at 9-1. Blaney is still a good 10-1. And then you have some of these other bargains that are still where they are. We talked about some of these guys last week. So I don't see any other major changes. But I still think Elliott, even though he's at 9-1 now, if you haven't taken him and you just wanted to wait, well, I mean, I still think 9-1's not bad.
No, for Elliott, for sure. I think he's the type of driver, he used to be winning all the time until he went on this long dry streak. And I think now having made that breakthrough, I would expect several more wins to come for him this season.
All right, and then quickly here you see the odds for the race. We're going to go over this right now. Byron, Blaney, Keselowski are the co-favorites. Logano, Hamlin, and Elliott are right there. So you got 6 drivers really as kind of co-favorites, if you want to put it that way. And as always, because this is a Talladega Daytona race, you're going to get more than enough drivers that odds-wise are going to have a shot at winning a race. Okay. So Blaney, Byron, Keselowski. We'll start with the 3 of them. I just can't take Keselowski though, because even though that he's had a great run here with 6 wins, this is important to note. In the new car, he only has 1 top 20. That was a 5th place finish He's only led 7 laps with the new car. So because he's a favorite, I can't take him when I can take Blaney and Byron at the same number. Blaney's a definite. You have to take him every time he's at Daytona or Talladega. And Byron, I usually do this with golfers because I think it's more luck with NASCAR drivers. But Byron has improved all 4 of his races, so he's trending in the right direction. He went from 15th to 12th to 7th and 2nd. So there's only one place to go, and that's first. If he continues on that path, he led 52 laps with the new car out of 108 all-time 12 races. That's 8 before that. So yeah, I think Byron, Chevy, and all that. Blaney, if I'm going with, and again, we'll talk about the other 3 coming up, but those are 2 that I'll probably get a 0 in on, Blaney and Byron.
Out of these 3 for me, Blaney is my top choice, Byron would be my second choice, and Keselowski would be my third. All 3 of them could easily win, and it would not be a surprise one bit. They would be my top choices overall, so justifiably the favorites. But if I have to choose in order, Blaney, Byron, then Keselowski.
Logano is 11-1, as is Hamlin and Elliott. So again, these are the top 6. Now the interesting thing is that I'm pretty much sticking with Blaney and Byron. Even with we're adding these 3, Logano does have a great history here with the 3 wins, but with the new car, he has not registered a top 20. So that's been, now he did lead 48 laps in the race in October, but and that was from qualifying in the front row, but he ended 24th. And this is something I talk about a lot in these races. I believe a lot in, if you want to call it trends, or just or mojo, or maybe even the best way is just the pattern that you're in. I think you can go up and you can go down, and you could, whether it's confidence or not. And I think that when I see these types of crazy races at Talladega and Daytona, I don't care how good of a driver you are. Even Brian Blaney, if you go through a stretch of 3, 4, 5 races where it's just not working out, you're getting into wrecks, and your average finish is bad, I just can't take those guys. I'd get out of the slump, whatever you want to call it. Then I'll look at you next time. But when you're going hot or when you're going cold at these racetracks, I do think it's important, and that's how I usually bet these races.
NASCAR is all about momentum, so that is very wise advice. I highly recommend following it as well. I really want to go with Logano at this point because he's shown speed of this group, I should say. He's shown speed all season. It's really just been bad luck that has kept him from winning. But exactly like you said, this is all about momentum.
And bad luck. Yeah.
Bad luck, and he's got bad luck. So yeah. I do think Logano could do extremely well, but like you, I think he's got to break out of the slump a little bit in order to be the top choice of the group. Hamlin, however, 2 top 5s, I think, out of the last 3 that he's been here at Talladega. It's really hard to win races back-to-back from an Elliott point of view. Plus, Elliott, we still don't know, how on top of this new car he is. So of this group, probably Hamlin for me, Logano, and then Elliott probably third, only by virtue of the fact that he won last week.
Yeah, Hamlin does have a couple of top 5s, but here's the thing we talked about with the spring and the fall. In the last 3 spring races for Hamlin, 17th, 18th, and 32nd. When we come around in the fall, when you're with us in the fall, so make sure to subscribe. When you're with us, 8 straight finishes in the top 7, okay, including a win. So he's much better, for whatever reason, in the fall at Talladega. So that's why I'm going to pass on him. And I would probably go with Elliott, but again, coming off the win, like you said, it's so difficult to win back-to-back, especially when you haven't done it in a while. But he's been pretty good with the new car, 12th or better at all 4 races, including a win. So that's why I would take Elliott out of that 3, but I'm not going to. Out of those 6, I'm going to go with Blaney and Byron.
Yeah, I agree. Blaney and Byron out of the 6 if I'm forced to choose. The other thing about Logano that's interesting, you mentioned Hamlin, spring and fall. Logano is the same from a Talladega Daytona perspective. Yeah, Logano's had some success at Talladega, but I think he's been more successful at Daytona. He tends to be higher up there more frequently. But the Penske cars, Logano, and he and Keselowski have a habit of hooking up, whether they're both at Penske or Keselowski's moved on to RFK. So I wouldn't be surprised to see those two hooked up. But out of those 6, yeah, I can't disagree with you. Blaney and Byron, top choices.
All right, and then we've got Kyle Busch, Bubba Wallace, Ross Chastain, and Christopher Bell between 15 and 16 to 1. And out of those 4, I'm going to go. What's that?
This one's really easy.
Oh, well, okay, yeah. I think yeah, it is. But the one that makes it really easy is the one that's not exactly in a good run right now, if we're talking about the same driver. But if you look at Kyle Busch, if you look at it, in the new car, he has 2 top 5s and a win. He led just 3 laps in that win, but he's got a win. Before the new car, he had 9 straight finishes outside the top 5. So the new car has been good for Kyle Busch at this track, and we know how good Kyle Busch can be on these types of races. Wallace, I would take out of these 4, not just because he's got a win. And look, he hasn't had a top 15 in 4 races with the new car, but he has led 53 laps. He does have a win here, and he usually does well, but then it seems like, whether it's impatience or whatever it is, he kind of gets into trouble. Christopher Bell has just 1 top 5 out of 8, and Ross Chastain, now he does have a win in the top 5, but that was 2022. I still find it kind of really weird about how good Chastain was and Suarez in 2022 and how bad they were in 2023. I don't understand. I still can't figure that out. But keep in mind, when Chastain won that race in 2022, he led 1 lap. So it's not like Chastain has a whole lot of a great history here. He's probably similar to Wallace regarding his history. But out of that 4, I would take Kyle Busch. And if I was taking a second driver, I'd probably take Wallace. What about you?
My first choice is actually Wallace. I think Wallace, the reason I wouldn't go with Kyle Busch is he's had such horrendous luck this season.
Yep.
We talked about it last week. Almost everything is going wrong with Richard Childress Racing. However, Austin Dillon last week cracked the top 10, his best finish so far.
Hey!
So when we get to Austin Dillon, when we get down onto these long shots, he's definitely got to be on your list.
Well, so did Kyle, though.
Well, yeah, that's true. Kyle, he was a little bit behind. Dillon finished ahead of Busch last week.
Well, the funny thing is a lot of these drivers that finished the way they did last week would have been a lot further back if it wasn't for all those late cautions. Yeah,
totally, without question.
Yeah.
So certainly from this group, I think it's Bubba Wallace, in my opinion, aside from Hamlin, might be the only Toyota that's actually capable of winning this race this weekend. I think it's likely going to be a Chevrolet or a Ford. If you're going to go with a Toyota driver, I think Wallace and Hamlin are probably your 2 best bets.
Okay, and then we go next. We've got Gibbs at 18, Buescher at 19, Larson at 20, and I'm not taking any of these guys. If you look at it, Gibbs doesn't have much of a history here at all in both Xfinity or Cup. Matter of fact, he hasn't finished a race in the Cup. Buescher has 1 top 5 in his career. We've talked repeatedly about Kyle Larson and how bad he is at Daytona and Talladega. Now he's getting the odds he should get here. It was crazy how much respect they were giving him with the odds at Daytona earlier. Maybe they've learned their lesson. So yeah, out of those 3, I'm just a hard pass on all 3 of them.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to choose one of them, it would be Buescher, only because of the fact teammates Keselowski and teammates have a tendency to hook up, so maybe they get together and can push each other to the top. But aside from that, I agree. I think Gibbs is he hasn't finished, like you said. Larson, not great on restrictor plate tracks, even though it's not a restrictor plate anymore, it's a super speedway, but still same type of racing. And then
Larson,
Larson's getting the odds that he deserved, like you said, but still, I don't know. I'd rather go with Bowman, who's on the screen now, versus Larson.
Yeah, because Larson, I don't have it right here, but I'm pretty sure if you look at it, he has 1 top 5 here. He probably has 1 top 5 at Daytona. So he's done nothing at these tracks. Then you have Reddick, Bowman, and Truex all at 22 to 1. And Reddick does have an Xfinity win here in 2019, a couple top 10s, but on a new car, no top 15s. Bowman has an average of 23.9 in 16 races, which is 1 top 5. And Truex is another one that is not good on these racetracks, even though he's been better lately. He's got 3 top 5s out of 38. So, but I agree with you. Out of these 3, I would go with Bowman because he's in a Chevy and he's been known to steal races before.
Bowman, hands down, would be the top choice of this group. Reddick, probably a distant second. Truex is just remarkable how bad he is at these tracks. Just one top finish in the top 10, dating all the way back to 2016. And that was a 5th place finish in the spring race of 2022. Every other time his best finish since then has been 12th, and most of the time he's been outside the top 20. Just remarkably bad, which is actually surprising for somebody of Truex's caliber.
All right, and then we've got Stenhouse at 28, Jones, Dillon, and Cindric at 30. So this is actually where we can start to maybe make some money here if we're lucky, the lucky drivers. Now, Stenhouse, even though he has a good history here with 6 top 5s out of 21 and a 2017 win, with the new car, he does not have a top 10. Keep that in mind, but he is still dangerous at these tracks. But the real interesting one, and I think you'll agree with me. Now, Dillon's in this group, so you talked about that. And by the way, he was runner-up in 2022 here in the first race with the new car. Cindric has 4 Cup races, but in the spring, no good. Fall, good. So when we're in the fall with Cindric, we'll let you know. But Jones is without a doubt the must-play here, 30-1. We liked him last week, and he let us down. But you just got to keep taking a driver sometimes, especially the long shots. And one week they'll put it together. In the new car, he's got 3 6th-place finishes and a 26th. So he also has 6 top 10s in the last 8 at Talladega with 2 top 5s and a runner-up.
Yeah, and I don't know that he necessarily let us down. I think he showed speed last week, but then just didn't have the circumstances with all the cautions to be able to stay up there, unfortunately. But yeah, I think I already said I'd be taking Dillon. Made it into the top 10 last week, so hopefully that ends his string of bad luck. We know how good Richard Childress Racing is on super speedways, and we know how good Austin Dillon is on super speedways. So I think you got to take him this week. But you're right. Jones, 9th, 6th, 6th, and then 26th. And even though he finished 26th in the fall race last year, he still had 4 laps. He led laps in all of the last 4 races, and in fact 6 of the last 7 at Talladega. So Jones is consistently at the front at this track and finishing in the top 10, and everybody knows all you got to do is be within striking distance at the end to win here at a place like Talladega.
Okay, and Stenhouse, what a bad season he's having.
Yeah. Normally he would be one that you definitely want to consider on a super speedway because that's where he's made his name and he's notoriously aggressive. Often that gets him into trouble. But this year he hasn't even shown a flicker of competitiveness, and that team just took a giant step backward this year. I mean, really disappointing for him. But yeah, I'm going to avoid Stenhouse this weekend.
Actually, his best race happened to be, surprise, Atlanta. So, yeah. But again, you can go a lot worse than Stenhouse if you're looking for a long shot. And then we've got Suarez at 35, McDowell at 40, Gregson and Briscoe at 45. And again, more good long shots. I would go with Suarez, McDowell, and Briscoe, and Gregson maybe too. I mean, these are all 4 good long shots. Suarez has 3 straight top 10s here. McDowell has 4 top 10s in the last 9, including 1 top 5 in the last, I believe, 3 races. Gregson's got a 2022 Xfinity Series win, and he was dominant here in Talladega in the Xfinity Series, so he knows this racetrack. And Briscoe, he has 2 top 10s and a top 5 in his last 4 with the new car. And a matter of fact, if you wipe out a crash he had, his last 3 races are all in the top 15 at Talladega. So yeah, I think all 4 of these are very interesting long shots.
Yeah, I agree. I think Suarez certainly tops that list for me. If I'm looking at anybody else, Briscoe certainly high up there, maybe even equivalent with Suarez. If I need to go below that, though, McDowell has been better at Daytona more so than Talladega. Noah Gragson, though, I think if there's a place where Noah Gragson can really outperform expectations, it's a place like Talladega, and it's going to be this weekend. He was so good at these tracks, and specifically on Talladega in the Xfinity Series. For those who paid attention, I mean, he was good on every track in the Xfinity Series. He just doesn't have the equipment and the experience here in the Cup Series. So I think it's just a matter of time. This type of track, Talladega especially, is an equalizer of equipment, and somebody like Noah Gragson, who knows how to get it done, I think could be a surprise shot. So yeah, I guess long story short, I agree with all of them.
In the 8 career races in the Xfinity Series, Gragson has 6 top 10s, 3 top 5s, and a win. So yeah, he knows.
Maybe, yeah, your Hocevar from last week is probably Gragson this week.
Okay. Next up, we have Todd Gilliland at 50-1, Corey LaJoie at 50-1, and Ryan Preece at 55-1. And Gilliland and LaJoie are another couple of wacky long shots. I mean, Gilliland, if you wipe out his 27th place finish with the new car, the other 3 races, he's averaged 14th. Actually, he's averaged 14th with the new car because in the last 3 races, he's finished 7th, 10th, and 12th at Talladega. LaJoie's coming off of 4th last October, and we know how dangerous he could be at these types of tracks. Preece was 8th last October, but I'm still not seeing it from Preece. So I think LaJoie and Gilliland, now we're getting to now we've got enough long shots already, but I still think if you just want to litter your board with long shots, I think Gilliland and LaJoie should probably be in there too.
Yeah, I would throw them equally in the hopper. Gilliland has done pretty consistently well at super speedways, regardless of whether you're at Talladega or Daytona. He seems to almost always be in that top 15, maybe even the top 10, and often in the top 5. LaJoie, I don't know what it is, but he finds a way to get to the finish. He's so successful at avoiding these big crashes at Daytona and Talladega, and he was better at doing that at Daytona for a long time. But like you said, last fall, it's like he finally figured it out at Talladega too. And I remember explicitly not choosing him in that race because I felt like he wasn't getting it done at Talladega, whereas he was more successful at Daytona. And then I kicked myself when he finished 4th. So I think LaJoie, if you're going to litter some dollar bets across the board, LaJoie's and Gilliland are 2 you got to take.
Zane Smith at 70, Berry, Hunter Nemechek, Hocevar at 70. Out of that group, let me see. Here you go. Out of that group, I'd probably, well, you know what? Just based on Mojo, I'd probably take Hocevar. But yeah, because I'm not really seeing anything that says that these long shots should be ones that I would take this week.
Yeah, I agree. Probably for me, maybe just because of the team he was in and the car he might potentially have, Josh Berry. But Zane Smith, Nemechek, Hocevar, all very successful drivers, but like you said, the mojo's not with them at the moment.
And then to wrap it up, you've got Haley at 80 as the one that probably sticks out, of course, because he has the 2 Xfinity Series wins at Talladega. He was 6th last October here, and that's probably it. I mean, Hemrick does have a top 5 and 4 Cup races at Talladega. But yeah, Haley would be one that I'd throw in there because that's impressive, having 2 Xfinity Series wins on this track.
Yeah, and he's also pretty good at super speedways. Again, more so at Daytona. He's got a 3 there due to the rain race, but he has a history of racing pretty well at these tracks. So Haley, I think, odd that he's behind the group that we just talked about.
Okay, picks. So who would be your top 3?
So top 3 are Byron, Keselowski, and Hamlin.
Oh, so you're going with those top 3, the 3 10-1 shots.
You got it.
In that order?
Yeah.
Yep, Byron, Keselowski, and Blaney.
I had to think about that for a second.
I thought the screen froze. Like, you there?
Yeah.
Byron, Keselowski, Blaney. Okay. I would go Blaney, Byron, and Kyle Busch. Those would be my top 3.
Put Blaney at the top. Yeah.
Okay. Blaney, Byron, Keselowski. And then I think we both would have Wallace.
I didn't think about it long enough. I should have thought longer to put Blaney up top. Yeah, Wallace would be my mid shot.
Yeah. And then long shots, we both like Jones,
Jones, and I'm going to throw Dillon in that list as well.
and I'll throw Briscoe as my top part of my top two.